Well, when I got to Vietnam, I literally expected to be welcomed with open arms by the people of Vietnam. I had in my head the black and white newsreels I had seen on the Walter Cronkite 20th Century show of the American troops rolling through villages in France and being showered with wine and flowers and kisses. They looked funny, and they acted funny. I mean, just riding along in this Jeep the first day I got there. They lived in little straw huts, and they had animals in their backyards, and they weren't like us. They smelled bad. The whole country smelled bad. It hurt the nose. And again, I can't even begin to explain in the space of time that you have all of the things that went into it. It became obvious that the enemy was the very people in these villages around us, and we were in a very heavily populated area at that time. They were the enemy, or at least the enemy was out there somewhere, and we couldn't tell one from another. And day after day, our patrols went out, and we ran into snipers and mines, and snipers and mines, and snipers and mines, and snipers and mines. But there was no one to fight back. And you begin to think, these people are the enemy. They're all the enemy. The notion I had when I was in high school was that the Viet Cong terrorized the Vietnamese population, forced them to fight against the Americans on pain of death. What I began to understand in Vietnam was that they didn't need to do things like that. All they had to do was let a Marine patrol go through a village, and whatever was left of that village, they had all the recruits that they needed. So it was this self-perpetuating mechanism. The longer that we stayed in Vietnam, the more Viet Cong there were, because we created them, we produced them. In my own experience, the Vietnamese people hated me, and I gave them every reason to hate me. I beat them, I sometimes killed them, I destroyed their houses, I destroyed their crops, I destroyed their fields, I destroyed their culture. Why in the hell should those people like me? What was going on here was not what I'd been told. What was going on here was nuts. And I wanted to get out. I knew if I were still alive on March the 5th, 1968, they'd stick me on an airplane in Da Nang. We used to call it the Freedom Bird. And I could fly away and forget the whole thing. Certainly for my last 8-9 months in Vietnam, I ceased to think. I quite literally ceased to think about why I was there or what I was doing. The sole purpose for my being in Vietnam at that point was to stay alive until I could get out. Then the reason for that is that, the kinds of questions that began to present themselves were just, the questions themselves were ugly. And I didn't want to know the answers. It's like banging on a door. You knock on a door, and the door opens slightly, and behind that door it's dark, and there's loud noises coming, like there's wild animals in there or something. And you peer into the darkness, and you can't see what's there, but you can hear all this ugly stuff. You want to step into that room? No way. You just sort of back out quietly, pull the door shut behind you, and walk away from it. left Vietnam, at the time, I was in the midst of the battle for Hue City during Tet, 1968, February 68. And I'd been up in the city for 2.5, 3 weeks. And I knew that my day was coming, but I wasn't sure when, and at that point, we weren't thinking about things like that. And we were in the middle of a low-key firefight. We were exchanging fire with some guys across the street from us. And a Jeep comes hauling up the street along the river and whips into this little compound where we were and says, "Ehrhart, your orders are in. Let's go." I immediately began to strip off my gear and distribute it to the other guys who were there and said, "So long, see you back in the world." Got on the Jeep. Last thing I saw of those guys, they were laying down covering fire for us. We burned our way back down the street. There was a chopper sitting on the LZ. I got on the Bird. Was up 3,000 feet above Hue City 10 minutes after I knew I was on my way out.